The Aussie NFL Fantasy Show would like to acknowledge the traditional land owners and the leaders past, present and emerging of Ngunnawal, Ngambri and Darawal countries where we are working from today. This always was, and always will be, Aboriginal land.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
If we just put a British accent, someone just narrating how to get your medicines prescribed.
Aussie?
Oh no, I just gave it away. Jeez, it's me. I was the guy that won the Astro League. I forgot about
shit, were you?
but
NFL?
He was just silent, no camera on. I'm just sitting there, I'm like eating my finger bun pre-draft.
Fantasy.
and they were having breakfast together, sitting there having big breakfasts, having a bit of bacon and egg, bit of sausage.
Sharing a
So
bagel. Very good.
we all know what that means. So basically, lock MPJ in for a top one season this year.
Top one.
Tale of the tradesman. No reason to have a trade segment on the podcast.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
Yeah, there we go. There we go, mate.
Yeah, that's the stuff.
Oh, that looks even bigger, man.
That didn't do anything for me.
Oh, it did stuff for us. Yeah.
It did shit for us. It's good enough.
In today's busy world, it's hard to have it all. Who has time to do all the analysis and decision making for your fantasy team? Probably not you, but we can help. Whether it's positively diagnosing players with fantasy leprosy, or helping you find the players who are on the verge of being fantasy legendary. There's only one name in all of fantasy you can really trust. Make an appointment with Dr GoodCall.
Yeah.
Big week for the doctor. Mate, I know you had a couple of wildly interesting guys in that lineup for last week. And and they had a kind of a mixed review of what happened. But, mate, where do you want to start with this? Because, you've got a player from each position, and each of them had their reasons why they should be all right. And then some turned up and some kind of had a rough time.
It was a bit of a comeback for Dr. GoodCall in terms of the position plays this week.
Yeah.
I was pretty happy with most of it. So I had Talor up against the Steelers, who were 26th against quarterback. That was looking like it was going to be a 40-piece at one stage. Early in that game, they were absolutely torching that Steelers D. And then the Steelers just were able to hold on in that first half to keeping the field goals instead of touchdowns after that first drive. And it just sort of stalled them a bit. I think they went in with about 16 points at halftime or 13 or something like that. And then they just couldn't really get a huge run going in the second half. And, Tua was clearly passing the ball absurdly quick, like to avoid sort of taking sacks. And even though he was trying to avoid taking sacks, he, for some reason, was ducking his head and instead of sliding and then trying to take on defensive linemen and things. I don't know what he was thinking there, but in the end, I think Tua ended up, depending on what sort of format you're in, somewhere between 15 and 17 points. So again, it's I'm relatively happy with that.
Okay.
Like any league I played him in, I was able to win. So I don't think it really hurt anyone. And I wouldn't say like it was some enormous like win for me for Dr. GoodCall either, but it definitely didn't hurt anyone playing Tua, put it that way.
No, and I think the benefit there is what you're saying is, hey, if you're stuck for an option, slide in Tua, because you had one of the week 7 bye quarterbacks like Hurts is out. Oh, well, Tua was probably available. Go get him, throw him in, and he would have done okay. So I guess you can claim it. I would have been happy enough if I was in that position.
And even though Dr. GoodCall is a week-by-week sort of segment, I would be happy if I had Tua now moving forward. Like, that was the game you sort of really wanted to get through just to make sure, he didn't obviously take a bit of a hit. That was the game you were always worried that if he just took anything, like a set of a fart when he breezed by his head, I think he was going to get pulled out for concussion. So I think you're happy to get through that game, and then he gets the Lions moving forward next week. So I think for anyone who picked up Tua, even if it was a bit of a stream, he might even be in consideration for your starting lineup this week as well.
Probably, yeah. There's definitely leagues where I kind of have to start him.
So Dr. GoodCall may have picked him up himself in one league.
Oh,
trade, but
what I'm talking about. But then running back, man, I don't know what to do with the Cowboys running backs at the moment, but you had a big bold call on the Cowboys running backs last week.
And I was happy with the call in general because I said that I thought Zeke would still have a good game. And I also said that I thought he would get more volume than Pollard. But I thought Pollard would have one of those games where he's about 8 or 9, rush attempts for about 100 yards, and it was pretty much bang on.
Not
I
bad.
just got a bit unlucky for him in terms of not getting any of the rush touchdowns. Anytime it was in the red zone, it just went to Zeke, and they kept getting pulled up on the 1 yard line. There was even I think there was 2 different rush attempts from Pollard where he broke out for about a 20-yard play, and both of them got pulled up within the 5. Both of them were so close, and he just couldn't get in. And then, of course, because he's just had a big play, and then now it's in the red, deep in the red zone, straight away it goes back to Zeke, and you're like, fuck, well, there goes the touchdown upside.
Yeah.
So
Up yours,
again,
Zeke.
I was pretty happy with the call. He clearly looked like the better back in terms of the plays. He was always going to be the one breaking off the bigger play, and he had a lot of good yards. He even caught a couple of passes, and I think he ended up with about 13, 14 points.
13 points
in fantasy.
No
So it was a good. I was pretty happy with the play. Like I said, up against the Lions, who were second last against running back. So I thought that was a decent play, and it worked out for people who took a shot on him.
He is now getting started in quite a lot of leagues too. I think that's probably, in terms of the way we play now, I don't know that we'll ever be able to get him again in starts of the week, because now people are being able to rely on that volume.
Yep.
Excellent call. Loved it. Tick, tick.
Yep.
You've been sleeping with the dogs, mate. Couple of ticks.
Oh, mate, loved it. Especially after last week. Came back from Coffs Harbour, Cough. That's my little pun there, because I just had to get her out of that AIDS town, because I've at least picked some better ones in Dr GoodCall this week.
After all that seagull sex, I thought you were going to call it Cox Harbour.
Oh, yeah. Only goals. Anyway,
Thanks, Mark.
wide receiver that Matty wanted to steal off me, and he did in another segment. Alan Lazard up against the Commanders, who, I like to sort of pick on in this segment a bit. The 27th against wide receiver. And I talked to him up a few weeks earlier. He was always sort of second or third on my lists in terms of starts of the week, but it was an odd one. He was clearly the lead receiver for Rodgers, but the problem was that Rodgers just didn't throw that much, and he just didn't have that many yards. And the problem was as well, obviously, it was Aaron Jones that stole the 2 touchdowns. And Lazard was the leading receiving getter, but then he also came off injured at the end of the third quarter, and you kind of wanted that fourth quarter because they were coming back. So you kind of wanted those. Well, they're not garbage points because the game was close, but you wanted those passing downs at the end.
Yeah.
The catch-up points, and he missed out on a lot of it. So he still ended up on over 10 points in PPR. I think it was about 11 and a half. So I was relatively happy with that. I was obviously hoping for a bit more out of him, but in the end, if you played him, he definitely didn't hurt you.
Yeah, I've got that as 3 in a row. I started him, of course, in our starts of the week, and I think, between him and Kenneth Walker, I was sitting on 40 points between 2 guys and feeling pretty sweet headed into Monday Night Football, and then we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I was kind of hopeful I would have got more out of Lazard, but only because, he then wasn't around in the fourth quarter. But it shows the strength of the call that if the guy can play 3 quarters and score 12 points, fantastic,
Absolutely. Now I'm really happy with the last one. I told this was the real stretch. I basically went for a real deep tight end.
Yeah, tight end 116 or something, was he?
And then not only, we're not a pro Russell Wilson podcast, but he then got a backup quarterback, which didn't even bode that well, even though it's 100% sure that the backup is actually worse than Russell Wilson right now. But it wasn't a great sign for Dolchich, but he still came out and got a lot of targets and a lot of receptions. Yeah. It was awesome for a PPR format. I always had a worry whether he was going to be able to get another touchdown just because of the offense, but in the end, he just looks like one of the best pass catchers. It's just how it is, and he looks great. And I think moving forward, he's definitely going to be a play in PPR. I think he definitely scored over 10. I think in depending on what format you either had, about 13 or 11, but he had a great week in fantasy this week, and obviously a lot of it came in the second half, but I just think that's going to be there moving forward. So, yeah, I think Dolchich looks great, and I think he's only going to get more and more involved in the offense if he keeps showing this production.
I'm pretty happy to change his name to Kelsich, don't you reckon?
That's it.
He's
exactly.
I can target monster number 1, number 2, and number 3 in that offense now. So everyone else is just fighting for scraps.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, his dad wasn't a Super Bowl winning quarterback, was he? That means he's a bum, so it doesn't matter. Brett Rippon, if if your dad was a Canadian dude that won the Super Bowl quarterback for Washington back in the day, I think that's good enough to be QB1. There you go.
And that QB has one less really weird Subway commercial. That's creepy as fuck.
The danger wish. Be careful, it's spicy.
Oh god.
Can I
I
say
feel
for a
like
sec
I'm-
there, when we're
my
talking
skin's
about
tingling.
had the Super Bowl winning quarterback father, I'm like, Greg Dulcich' dad was a quarterback. That's a weak moment for me.
Yeah,
All I know
Brett,
is-
sorry, my bad.
Dolchich has a sweet mustache and a great hairdo, and that's all I really care about.
Give him a
That's
ring
all I
for
need.
that.
That's all
Give him
I
a
need.
pastry. I mean,
He gets the pastry. That's better than fucking ring.
yeah, I'm gonna add him for a pastry. Perfect.
That's a draw.
Right there. I'm noting the time on that one. Fantasy Aids was looking really strong there for a bit there.
Oh,
But my
I've
boy,
copped it again, mate. I've copped it again. Again, I picked a very good situation where the running back didn't run for very well on yards per carry. He just ended up with a lot of volume because the fact they were in front, which wasn't 100% expected. And then he just dove over right at the end of the fourth quarter. Again, I get a message from the groups that I posted that in. Buddy, AIDS free. How good's Montgomery?
that wasn't just anyone. That was me
GoodCall.
in every single group. I just
Yeah, I
copied and
know.
pasted into every single one.
Oh. It was funny though because I was sad about that, but then I was also happy in the content league because it was pretty tight at that point, and it just sort of gained because
Kicked you over.
Stevenson. It didn't matter in the 100% in the end. Stevenson got about 100 catches in the catch-up mode at the end, but it sort of put me to a point where even like a Bears crazy intercept touchdown or something wouldn't have mattered. I still would have won. So I felt good about that, but at the same time, it was just so frustrating for the whole Dr. GoodCall AIDS player. Yeah, David Montgomery up against the Pats. I thought it was a decent call, and it looked for 3.5 quarters like it was.
Yeah.
And in the end, 2 weeks in a row, I've just been a bit unlucky that a guy not doing good yards per carry just dives over for a touchdown and scores somewhere around 12 to 13 points. And apparently that's not good enough. So
if we're going to celebrate how good 12 to 13 points is for the other ones, then you kind of got to go 12 to 13 points probably means the guy doesn't have AIDS. But it's 100%. Like the Sanders thing was the same, right? You know, he gets 3 yards per carry, but a strong gust blew him into the end zone. And so he gets 6 points for that. It's half of his points for the game. I think that's bullshit.
I will say, though, on Dr. GoodCall, where I'm picking guys that are basically getting streamed, whereas when I'm picking against someone for AIDS, I'm picking guys that everyone's starting, basically. So, I'm trying. I would give myself a little bit of credit and a little bit of leeway in terms of what you'd expect to be good, but it kind of feels like when I'm trying to pick an AIDS player, especially by the name, is that they're going to go quite shit. So we're kind of almost putting 10 points seems to be about the baseline of
these little 1-yard touchdowns for these two fuckers these last 2 weeks. That's the difference between you completely nailing the shite out of this and us being like, so dead. You're up against a hiding to nothing there, Tay. Sorry, brother.
It is one of these segments, and I'm putting myself out there, especially when I post it. Because I've lost twice in a row, posting it, I'm like, I have to keep doing it now. Like, I have to post it and get a win, and then all of a sudden, no one will say anything. I don't get any credit when I win, but I get destroyed when I lose.
Yeah, 100%. If you win at something, I am silent.
Absolutely.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. Maddie C.
James Conner's behind the dome. Go look behind the dome. And I look like I'm wearing my dad's shirt. Totally like McCaffrey. It always looks like he's wearing his dad's gear. Fantastic. I'm glad that you've still got the, that luxury of being allowed to lick rhinos still in the back pocket.
Aussie?
And then T. Like, these are just 3 guys, man, Jod. If you left him in a room alone with, he would totally just lick them all.
NFL?
The gap between Connor and Montgomery is closing, by the way. I'm really happy about this.
Fantasy.
Oh, give me a scoop of the Heebies to go with my Jeebies on that one. Mate, I'm all kinds of happy about that. You're like, oh, fucking predictable Matty. Always doing the same fucking things. I'm so disappointed. I really wanted to smack that ass, son. I'm going to go with old Goggles McGee.
Wow. Okay, so that's week 7 in the book. Man, I don't know what you do with week 8 because there's a few really decent teams on bye here where they would have some pretty compelling fellas to choose from. especially with the Chargers and the Chiefs off. And there's some guys now who all of a sudden have roles that would have been fun to sort of bet against. But where do you want to start here, man?
Well, I don't want to foreskin the whole 4 positions at once, but I'm going to say, remember where I had my best Dr. GoodCall week was I actually targeted one game, and I thought
same
there was
game.
a really good
I thought
chance
you
it
were
was
gonna
going
do
to. And so one of those teams is involved again, and you'll know that team straight away when I bring it up. The quarterback, I'm actually going to go back to Jared Goff. I actually am going to go back to him. So I know he's had a really, really tough couple of weeks, but he's also had a really tough matchups. Like, obviously, even though Fields had a field day against the Pats. Thank you. Oh, it's great. Thanks,
golf clap.
Dr. GoodCall, well done. That was a lot of that was of his legs, and Jared Goff obviously just doesn't have that. And that was a really tough matchup for them. I don't think if Amon-Ra played, it wasn't much. I can't remember if he played in that game or not, but they didn't have all their weapons. So yeah, it was a tough one for him. And then obviously last week against Dallas. Dallas can definitely stop. They can stop a lot of teams. Just with Micah and just everyone there. They've got a really good defense. So yeah, I'm not too worried. Like Miami doesn't scare me too much. They're 28th against quarterback. I just think at home too, they seem to play a lot like more free at home. The Lions. So I can see this being a high scoring game. I can see it being a bit of a shootout. So. I'm going to take a shot back on Jared Goff because, he's been struggling and I think a lot of people will be jumping off Goff. But I'm saying that you should stay on him.
Will they be beaten Goff, though?
It's good to have that joke back. Love that. Beating Goff.
I have to steal those. Ones.
You get a golf club too. Golf club.
I didn't do his home and away splits, but they would have to be enormous. Like he's been so much better at home than he has been away this year. So
Big Ben, indoor, outdoor, and Drew Brees home and away esque. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm taking a shot. This is going to be a high scoring game.
Woohoo! I like it. We dropped him this week. We're gonna have to go back and pick him up, man.
Yeah, look, we need him for the beaten Goff jokes, and if Dr. GoodCall hasn't beaten Goff, so. I'd be doing that too. So,
yeah, and if you can do that,
just live up to the name.
And this is Shell Harbour, Dr. GoodCall, so you know it's going to work.
Yeah. Hashtag facts right there. Hashtag facts. Into the running back, brother. What do you got for me? Because I desperately need running backs, mate.
Same game, mate. And Marky Mark will like this. And I know we talked to him about 2 weeks ago, and then he didn't have a great game. And then last week,
for an ass blasting Gaskin?
Nah.
I know
what's happened there?
I know it's one of your boys.
It's the boy Raheem the Dream, Mostert. He's the one that I got sad that Mark took in starts the week last week, and then he had actually not a great game. And then he had a pretty decent game last week. Again, it was very much in the first drive. He got the passing touchdown, had a lot of yards, and then for the rest of the game, they actually didn't do a bad job on him, the Steelers. But it was a good fantasy game purely because of that first drive. So
late, yeah.
And this is purely just the volume he's getting now because Chase Edmonds, I don't know if he's Dick the coach's daughter or something. I don't know what he's done, but he's just not getting looked at all. He's the one getting paid too. Like he's getting paid so much more than most of it, but it's just almost he just fits that system so much better. They want a quicker, sort of more agile is probably not the right word. It's definitely about speed because like I would say Chase Edmonds is quite agile, but it's definitely about that real quickness that McDaniel seems to really like and need for his offense. And most it just fits it to a T. So, yeah, I've talked up a lot. I pick out the Lions rush D nearly every week, and this is just a perfect example again of it. And honestly, most it I think fits the Bills still too because he hasn't had like back-to-back great games. Like I said 2 weeks ago, when everyone thought he was going to break out, he had like 5 points, and then last week he had that great game, and then again this week you like the matchup, but you're like, is he just going to go back to being a pumpkin again? Like, so I thought he fit the Bills still, but if he had a really good game here as a backup to what he did last week, I think he'd probably fall out of contention for what we're doing here.
Yeah, go close.
4 touchdowns coming in, just like the 2019 championship game.
235 yards or whatever and 4 touchdowns. It's coming, mate. Like a freight train. I can hear it in the distance.
Yeah.
He's another person on Marky Mark's team that I reckon is just going to dominate. Like I said, if I was doing Goober and Super, I'd have Mark's team in Astro League as Super this week.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of good players.
Bring that back every week. Just like as a quick TikTok. Come on, man. That's Spanish.
Oh,
viewers
do it
need
as a
that shit.
TikTok. That's the
Yeah,
way.
and
Yeah,
fucking-
I could look at doing that.
that's a good idea. Mate, I'm just also wondering maybe if Chase Edmonds has slowed down from having to carry that wallet around. If that's
Yeah,
what's
apparently.
if that's what it is, but I digress.
Getting about a mil a touch at the moment.
We might go back to that team that you're wearing the jersey of, Matty.
Possibly.
Maybe they have an amazing running back there who
Eno.
yeah. Now
we know.
I spent a little bit of draft capital in some dynasty leagues on Keontae Ingram too, and that's actually been surprisingly useful. So who would have thought? But
And
again,
I know we're digressing completely
Yeah.
off topic, but I'd like to at least think that that's proven me right in terms of the job. Like the job has always been good at the Cardinals. That running back job actually gets a lot of touchdowns. You just got to pick the right guy and hope your guy doesn't get
that's the
injured,
problem.
basically.
Yeah, this year it's just been a shit fight. Where last year it wasn't a shit fight. It was great because one guy pretty much had the lion's share. But yeah,
I just hope anyone that has Connor has Eno because, it's been pretty obvious when to play Eno. And obviously, you pretty much never had a chance to even play Connor.
So Montgomery won that debate then, by default.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah. I don't know if we can pay out a water bet on that though because Connor's been
It's
dead
not
for
even
too long.
fair. It's not
Yeah,
even.
we'll see. Again, I don't want to foreskin from something we might do next week, but I still think Connor's not a bad pickup.
Oh, next week he's already fucking a week
I'm
ahead.
crazy.
Is he?
Yeah,
I'm like,
Taylor's
Dr.
actually got
GoodCall,
the whole
mate.
season mapped out already.
Man, this
Dr.
is a rig.
GoodCall's talking about everything.
They talk about the NFL being rigged and shit. Oh shit, I got it's cancelled. Oh my gosh, I think Dr.
Got
GoodCall might be. I might have exposed Dr. GoodCall here. Might have to bring in my public prosecution team.
Mate, you don't know what's under that trench coat, that coat I wear, mate. That doctor's coat. It could be nothing. I'm exposing it all over the place. Anyway,
Nothing
speaking
but
of
a tie and a smile.
that's speaking of exposing defenses. I'm going to go to my wide receiver here, and it's actually someone that I took in this segment, I believe, but I definitely took in starts of the week, and he boomed, and then he was just never seen in starts of the week again. But I believe he actually fits the bill again because he's dropped down to basically wide receiver 30, and he wasn't a high-end guy. It's Devontae Smith. I'm taking him up against the Steelers, who are 31st against wide receiver. I talked about Raheem Mostert not being able to put a couple of games in a row together. Devontae Smith just goes missing every basically second game. Like, it is amazing. He's had a couple of games. He had the huge boom game, obviously, that I talked about against Washington that I picked him up for. But outside of that, he really hasn't had an enormous season. He's flashed, but he just hasn't been consistent. So anyone that's been playing him, expecting that boom game again, has been pretty disappointed.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I thought you were going to go with the same game multi, stick it through, and go Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I started writing it
I know
down.
who that is. I was going Amon-Ra St. Brown. Oh shit!
I kind of
you can
feel like he doesn't fit because
you can get him anymore.
The only reason he's fallen back in production has been injury.
Smith has been playing.
Then he got concussed like in the first quarter on his first catch.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of still don't feel like he fits if he has a full practice one week and he's 100%. Like I still think he doesn't fit. But
I don't think anyone's dropped him. That's the thing. Like I don't think anyone's dropped him.
I
They've benched him, and they'd start him the second they know he's going to be healthy again. Where you can't say that about Devonta Smith. And that's
I
why
don't think everyone's 100% playing him again. Like I think he's dropped off a bit, and he's been healthy. He's playing every game. He's just not. You're not seeing huge production each game. So I think he definitely fits the bill. And up against this Steelers team, which is, giving it up to a wide receiver position this year, I'm picking this hopefully to be the breakout game.
No, and a tough out last week. 0 targets last week because it was the bye week, but also it's a bit tough.
I mean, he's also had a goose in another game when it wasn't a bye week as well. So it's not out of character.
He's the new Deshaun Jackson. He'll give you 30 or he'll give you 2.
Now, speaking of goose.
Oh,
I'm taking Gooseicky, baby.
I knew it. I knew you mentioned that game. Same game.
Back to the game.
Had to be.
Right.
I was about to say I'm going to stack him. Then I realize I'm not.
You have to get Hawk.
Not Tua, but well, no, Dr. GoodCall. But
Hawk watch.
Yeah,
up against the Lions, who are 28th against tight end. And he just seems to be getting more and more involved. Like, he's obviously had that breakout game where he did the shitty gritty, and he had a couple of touchdowns. But look, in the end, he this looks a lot more involved than he was earlier in the season. And, it doesn't really take much against this Lions D. You can torch him anywhere. And I just think there's an opportunity for Goose this week to knock Goose, hopefully.
Yeah, 100% agree. If it's not most to gain touchdowns, it's got to be Gesicki, isn't it?
Surely.
Why don't we have both?
I had Gesicki penciled in as a freaking your tight end. I was like, if he's going at least 3 from the same game, Gesicki's got to be the tight end. 100%.
And Dr. GoodCall is a week by week man. Like, he knows that, that guy Talor, I've never heard of him, but apparently he's a wanker. I heard him talk shit about him in the preseason, and he was right for a while. And then,
things change.
Things change, and he just looks a lot better now. So I'm going to go with him. So
I think Dr. GoodCall needs to replace Talor. Look, some of the calls we've been shitting on some of Taylor's preseason calls today. I think
absolutely.
I mean, look, I got the Ayuk versus Moore debate correct. Look, Ayuk being better. I got to stick it up to Talor. I think Dr. GoodCall's got to replace him 100%.
I agree. Like, the calls that Dr. GoodCall's making during the season are far better than the shit he takes that guy at the start of the season. So
more
than happy for us to make that switch.
I think Dr. GoodCall's got to do those freaking preseason predictions. Go back in time travel. Dr. GoodCall knows best. I mean, he's
done.
We'll get Dr. GoodCall now every week as an age candidate to pull up somebody that Talor said was going to be awesome at the start of the year.
Yeah. Oh, mate, it's a long list of filth.
So, Elijah Moore this week. Right, got it.
On it.
Chase Edmonds next week.
Yep.
Oh, so bad. Those two were filth. Anyway, so we going to fantasy aids for this week?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Give us the coughs.
Again, I'm taking someone that's very high. He's running back 12 on the year. Everyone's darling. It's definitely been a breakout rookie. Taking Dameon Pierce up against the Titans, who are 8th against running back. And so I just want to bring something up here too. So I always talk to you guys when I was doing data for Dr. GoodCall, and start of the week and stuff, how I'd never like to take this year's data until at least week 4. Well, at least week 5. I want at least 4 weeks data.
Need a sample size.
And this is exactly why. Because I remember in week 2 and week 3, people were targeting running backs against the Titans because Barkley had that one really, really good week in week 1.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, all this data was saying the Titans can be ran on. The Titans defense shit there. And I'm sitting there losing my mind saying that is the best part of the Titans defense is their D-line. They are amazing.
Their entire defense.
Fucking Jeffrey Simmons, man. Jeffrey Simmons could be the whole freaking size of the D-line.
Exactly.
That dude.
But they were number 1 in the league.
Again, great.
A team doesn't go from number 1 in the league in entire, for a sample size of an entire season, number 1 against running back, and all of a sudden it just horrendous the next year without really losing anyone. It was like Autry, they lost, but really, to one guy for your D line, it's not going to really matter. So, I thought it was ridiculous, hearing all that stuff. And here's the last 4 games the starter has done against the Titans. Josh Jacobs, we all know his ridiculous year, 66 yards.
Yep.
Jonathan Taylor, everyone's number 1 pick, 42 yards. Brian Robinson and Gibson combined, 28 yards. And Jonathan Taylor again, 58 yards.
Ooh, all right.
All the running backs have done in the last 4 weeks against the Titans. Again, I love Dameon Pierce. He's had a fantastic year. I'm not saying that this is a bad sign for him the whole rest of the year. I'm just saying that it's not great running against this Titans D-line. He's not doing a huge amount in the passing game. He's also not doing nothing. There's enough there. But
it's more Burkhead's role.
It's going to be a bad yards per carry against this Titans D-line. So, and my hope is obviously as a Titans fan, they're going to be behind. So I think they're going to need more passing than they are running. So the hope is that it won't be a good game script for a lot of volume on the ground. So I just think Dameon Pierce against this Titans D-line might not have his, enormous game this week that he's had in a few of the other weeks.
And it's a great call. It actually has this is something that I've been thinking about a little bit in the last couple of weeks too, because of the amount of Dynasty I play. Nearly all my leagues are Dynasty. I've only got a couple of redrafts, but I've got Dameon Pierce in a few places, and I'm starting to look at it thinking maybe now is the time to trade him because of how rare it is that a running back drafted after the 4th round who winds up with 1,000-yard season, it looks like Pierce probably will because he's running like mad. How rare it is that happens more than once, more than that 1 year. And the list of guys who've done it in recent times is like Chris Carson. Like it's almost nobody, right? So it kind of got me thinking about it, and that if there's going to be a week like this and it kind of exposes that maybe he isn't bulletproof, then it might ding his value. So now might be the time to go out and shop him, even in a long format league, just to go and firm it up for someone who I think is maybe just a little bit of a better, longer play. But
I've said that at the start of the year.
Yeah.
I would look, I think, wait for really, really good production from him and probably look to trade him in Dynasty. I don't think I wouldn't be like stoked to trade him in redraft. I actually think he's going to have a really good finish to the year. I'm just saying that's going to be a bad week up against the Titans, but that doesn't mean he's just not going to just go smash a lot of better matchups later in the year. So, yeah, I agree with you. I reckon there's a decent chance he doesn't have.
He still gets to play the Jags again, so, no worries.
Yeah, that's it. But like you said, the draft capital matters a lot in Dynasty. Yeah. So I think there's a chance that they could go for someone else next year, if not the year after. And then all of a sudden you've only got a year and a half, 2 years of him just being this guy. And honestly, what you could get for him right now, I think is worth more than that.
Yeah, I think people trip over themselves to give you something good for it in Dynasty only. I don't think it's worthwhile 100%. Moving him. If you're a contender in redraft now, hang on. You're going to have a bad week from him this week. Okay, you live with it and you move on.
Well, we think that he's probably just going to dive over for a 1-yarder.
Motherfucker.
I think we should be stopping. We shouldn't be talking about Dynasty. That's Mark's world, man.
Mark,
we're looking we look like dumbasses compared to Mark Downey.
That's guru.
Yeah, we should not be talking about Dynasty here.
No, that is definitely his grass. Sorry to cut your grass, Mikey Mark. I mean, he's my brother. I shouldn't be doing that to him. I love you, brother.
Don't be doing that shit.
Catch that No Huddle podcast though, because it's on our channel and it pops up every week. He's got a show. It pops up in that little midweek part of the cycle where we don't put out a show, so it's a nice open space to run into, and it's great to see people are out there supporting him through the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show channel too. So keep supporting Marky Mark. He's a brilliant analyst.
That's Dr. GoodCall for the week, guys. Good luck.
Yeah.
Prosecution calls their first witness.
Do not panic just yet. Even I am guilty of panicking.
I mean, what, are you going to detain the guy for just having a couple of bad days? I don't want people to follow me around at work and detain me whenever I have a bad
20 bloody 8th, Your Honour. Sorry for the cursing in your old courtroom, sorry.
I will allow it.